This video is designed to give you a little bit of an introduction to the GCSE RS exam and to give you an overview of what you can expect. The examining body for the RS exam is the WJEC. There are going to be 2 papers, both of which are 2 hours each. In each paper there are 4 units. This is what you should see when you get your first paper. So as you can see, the paper is called Unit 1 and it is 2 hours long. It's made up of 4 units that are the core beliefs and practices in Christianity, core beliefs and practices in Islam, and then 2 philosophical units of life and death and good and evil. The first unit on paper 1, and by far the longest, is the core beliefs and practices in Christianity. As you can see on the screen, that includes lots of topics such as the beliefs and teachings about God, the creation accounts, the life of Jesus and his teachings on morality. It also includes information on making moral decisions such as absolutism, relativism and divine command theory. And then you've got the history of the church and their worship practices, including prayer and social justice. The second unit on paper 1 is much shorter, and that's the beliefs and practices in Islam. That includes the nature of Allah and how Muslims live life in submission to him, why images of Allah are not permitted, and it includes their sacred texts like the Quran, the Sunnah and the Hadith. It also includes things like the 5 pillars and the Shahada. The third unit on paper 1 is the philosophy unit of life and death. That includes the diversity of creation accounts such as those from science and humanism, the attitudes to environmental responsibility and stewardship. You've got ideas about the sanctity of life and quality of life. You've also got abortion, euthanasia and organ donation and the legal position of those in Wales. In addition to that, in this unit, you've got the beliefs about life after death and funerals. Finally, the fourth unit on paper 1 is another philosophy unit of good and evil. That includes the explanations of evil and suffering, such as those from Genesis, Augustine and Irenaeus. We also look at whether evil challenges the existence of God. This also includes sources of moral authority and questions regarding Sharia law and whether that should be allowed in Wales. Finally, it finishes with attitudes to punishment, prison, war and pacifism and forgiveness. Paper 2 looks very similar to paper 1 and again is 2 hours long. The 4 units in this are again core beliefs and practices in Christianity, core beliefs and practices in Islam, and then this time 2 ethical themes of relationships and human rights. In paper 2, the Christianity unit covers the Bible and how that's used and interpreted by Christians, other sources of authority, beliefs and teachings about the afterlife, sacraments such as baptism, Eucharist, confirmation and marriage, and attitudes to pilgrimage. Unit 2 is again the core beliefs and practices in Islam, but this time we look at prophets such as Adam, Ibrahim, Isa and Muhammad, beliefs and teachings on the afterlife, key features of the mosque, the practice of Hajj, clothing in Islam, and also jihad, looking at both the greater and the lesser jihad. And then finally we finish with festivals. The third unit on paper 2 is the ethics unit of relationships. Within this we look at the types of family and religious attitudes towards family. We look at the roles of men and women and whether or not they're equal. Then we look at issues to do with relationships such as marriage, divorce, remarriage, sex and adultery, cohabitation and sex before marriage, contraception and same-sex marriage. Finally, the fourth unit on paper 2 is another ethics unit of human rights. Within this, we look at what human rights actually are and different organisations that have attempted to promote human rights. We look at social justice and the teachings surrounding equality, prejudice and discrimination. But we also look at some more contemporary issues, including religious expression, extremism and poverty. Within each of the 4 units, there are 4 different types of question. A questions are definition questions. These will ask you to define a key concept and they're worth 2 marks. B questions always ask you to describe and these are worth 5 marks. C questions are explanation questions, they're worth 8 marks. And D questions ask you to discuss. Those are worth normally 15 marks, but there are extra 6 marks available for spelling, punctuation and grammar. So let's have a look how some of the questions will look on this exam paper. This is an example of an A question from the Christianity unit. As you can see, it's worth 2 marks, so you'd have 2 minutes to answer that question. The examiners are expecting you to define the term and then add an example or an explanation to gain the 2nd mark. As you can see, B questions are worth 5 marks. You have 5 minutes to answer those questions. The trigger word is always describe. The examiners then are looking for you to give an account of a belief, concept or practice, and either give 5 simple points or 3 developed points. In a B question, you don't need to give really detailed references to teachings, but they would be expecting to see some brief links to teachings to support your description. As you can see, C questions are worth 8 marks. You have 8 minutes to answer those questions. The trigger word will always be explain. In these questions, you need to give a comprehensive account of a belief, concept or practice, so I would aim to give 3 to 4 detailed paragraphs. It's more important in these C questions that you add evidence or examples to support your points, and that your explanations consider the impact that this concept has on religious practice. Where possible, distinguish between different denominations. D questions are the most important question in the exam. They carry 15 marks, so you have 15 minutes to answer those questions. The trigger word is always discuss, and so the examiners are expecting to see a range of arguments for and against, ideally between 4 and 5. You should add evidence to support those arguments, and you should follow a point evidence explain link structure. Remember to finish with a conclusion, given a clear judgment on the statement. In the first D question, the Christianity unit, there are an additional 6 spag marks. The D question on the first philosophy unit, the life and death unit of paper 1, is slightly different. It's still worth 15 marks, so you still have 15 minutes to answer the question, and the trigger word is still discuss. However, on this occasion, they're asking for religious and non-religious beliefs, so at least one of your answers has to be from a non-religious position, such as that of humanism. When you're practicing your D questions, you might find it useful to use this quarter-it page that gives you different openers and connectives to use in each of your paragraphs in a D question. You can get these from your teachers directly.